So welcome to the next lesson for trig. And so we're going to go back to this unit circle thingy thing, and unit just means one. That is the cost, like unit cost is the cost of one. So that's what the word unit means, is one. So let's talk about the coordinates here. So this right here is 0 degrees, and the coordinates for this, right, if this is 1, my radius of this circle is 1, then that means that this point is going to be my x is 1, my y is 0. Okay, and then if I go over to my next one, my next coordinate, which over here is right here, right, my x is 0 and my y is 1. Okay, do you see what I'm doing? Finding the coordinates of each of these. And so if I go to my, so this is 90 degrees. If I go to 180 degrees and I try to find my coordinate, right, I am going, again, this is 1, but it's negative 1. So it's negative 1 comma, and my y here is 0. All right, and at 270 degrees, my final thing that I'm going to have is I'm going to have a coordinate of, this is 0 comma negative 1. Okay, so if I look just at my, and I should have done that in black, this negative 1 right here. All right, so if I look at just my y's, right, it goes from 0, then it goes to 1, it goes to 0, goes to negative 1, goes back to 0. Okay, so why did I show you that? I showed you that because sine is the same thing as my y, and I can prove that by going like this. Here's my right triangle. Okay, so sine is opposite, right? Here's my OPP over my hypotenuse. Okay, so if I match this up, isn't this my y coordinate? So my sine is y. Please write that down. Remember that. And remember what happened to sine, right? So what did we notice? We saw that sine started at 0, went to 1, went to 0, and then to negative 1, and back to 0. So on a graph, if I were to graph those points, sine started at 0, went up to 1, went back to 0, went to negative 1, and went back to 0, right? So if I take a look at what happens to sine, it's going to make a wave, okay? It's going to look something like this. So please draw this on your paper with me. Just remember that sine starts at 0, okay? So sine is my y, sine starts at 0, goes up to 1, 0, negative 1, and 0, okay? Cosine is the same thing as my x's. These are my x's. So cosine of x is equal to x, and y, w, h, y, right? Cosine is, here's my angle, is adjacent over my hypotenuse. So if this is 1, right, my cosine is x. It's this x value. Makes sense? So what happened to my cosines? Cosine started at, look at this, starts at 1, goes to 0, negative 1, 0, and back to 1. So let's graph that, okay? Cosine, right, starts at 1, goes to 0, goes to negative 1, goes back to 0, and finishes at 1. So if I were to graph this, it would look something like, so cosine starts at 1, right, and goes something like that. I should do this part better. Okay. Oh, the second part sucked. All right, you get the point, and it's going to be wavy. Okay. All right, so there's my cosine. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what each of these letters mean in a graph. Okay, so my A, let's do some green here. So my A here is the same thing as my height. It's the amplitude. Okay, amplitude is the height. So we always start at our D, which is our midline, so vertical shift. So this right here is my midline. It's where I have my graph and it cuts it in half. Do you see that? So from my midline, right, we're going to do an actual problem in a second. Up is going to be my amplitude, okay? From my midline up is going to be my amplitude. So if I were to go ahead and color code this, this is my amplitude, A. And the height is always the absolute value, right? It's always positive. So the height or the amplitude is always positive. Uh, B is the frequency, is how long. We'll talk about frequency in a little bit. And then your C is any phase shifts, which is left or right. But big things to remember right now is your midline, right? Your height. We'll talk about the midline, the height, and the period. Okay. So let's do an actual problem here. All right. So first thing we want to do is this graph a sine or a cosine? So let's talk about it. Okay, so remember sine starts at 0 and cosine starts at 1. Starts at 1. Okay, so let's look at where our graph starts. Boom, it starts at 0. So this is going to be a sine graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have my sine right here. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the midline, right? It's where it cuts the graph in half. So I'm going to go, in this case, I used my midline right here is green. So I went and I'm looking at this and it looks like my midline is the x-axis, which is 0. So my D is 0. So I'm going to put a 0 here. This is my D. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find my amplitude. So the amplitude, let's go orange here for amplitude. So the amplitude is the height. It's from 0 up, right? What number is this? Let's count. 1, 2, right? Do you see that? This is 1, this is 2. So my amplitude is 2. It is this distance, 2. So my amplitude goes in the beginning. So this is my A, and it's 2. Okay. All right, now the one that people might think is the hardest one is how long it takes to make a full cycle. Okay, how long it takes to make a full cycle. So if I look at period, that's what it means. How long it takes to make a full cycle. Okay, that's what period is. All right, so let's take a look at this, right? So if I look over here, ba, 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 ba. I have 2, I have 4, I have 6. So this right here, right, this is pi. So notice that there's a pi here. So if I go double that, this is going to be 2 pi. All right. So I want to know how much it is to make a full cycle. So let's take a look and see what that is, right? So this is where my graph starts. It starts at 0. I want to see how long it takes to make a full cycle. So remember what a full cycle is. Goes up, comes down, goes down negative, and comes back up, right? So this looks like it ends at 2 pi. So how long, what is the period, is going to be 2 pi. Now I want to find out what the B is. The B is, right? You see right here, I want to find out what this is. So I just found out that my period is equal to 2 pi. So let's put 2 pi over here. And if there's no number on the bottom, I'm going to put a 1. Okay. So now here, let's refresh our memory about how to solve this. Whenever I am looking for my B, I'm going to cross multiply here. All right. So 2 pi times 1 is 2 pi is equal to 2 pi times B is going to be 2 pi B. Okay, I want to get the b by itself. Let's divide both sides by 2 pi. Divide by 2 pi. This cancels out, and 2 pi divided by 2 pi is equal to 1. So that means that my b is equal to 1. I figured this out. All right, so b is equal to 1. And now let's go to the bottom. Let's put this together. So I'm going to go to, let's do blue. Here's my b, and my b is 1. So now we have the whole equation, right? We have y equals, let's go ahead and do this in, let's do this in more color that we didn't pick so far. Let's do black, okay? So we have y is equal to 2 sine of 1x plus 0. If I were to make this a little bit simpler, I could just write y is equal to 2 sine x, because 1 times x is just x, and then the 0 doesn't matter because it's plus 0, okay? So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and practice, right? So what is the period here? So for the blue graph, my period is pi, right? That's how long it takes to make a full cycle here, okay? For my red graph, it's going to be start here at 0, come back down, stop here at 2 pi. So my period for my red graph is 2 pi. And for my yellow graph, okay, starts here at 0, goes up, comes down. That's only half my cycle. So this is at 2 pi. So I'm going to do another 2 pi, right? It has to come back and go up. So this is going to be another 2 pi. So 2 pi plus 2 pi is 4 pi. So my period for my yellow graph is going to be, why am I writing 2 if it says 4, is going to be 4 pi. All right. So this is a little bit more practice. All right. So model problem number 2, we're going to take this and we're going to graph it over a domain from 0 to 2 pi. We have our handy dandy calculator. I know this part of the lesson is going to be a little bit longer. Oh, so I went into my y equals and I graphed it, right? I plugged in y equals 3 sine 2x plus 2 because that's what I had right here. And then I'm going to change my mode to radian, which right now it already is in radian, right? Do you see that? If I go down, it's already in radian, so I can hit enter just to confirm. And now the next thing I want to do is I want to hit my window because they tell me that they want me to graph it from 0 to 2 pi. So this is going to be my x's. I'm going to change my x min and my x max. So x min, we're going to start it at 0, and my x max, we're going to go to 2 pi. Okay. And it's customary to just go pi over 2. So pi divided by 2 is going to be our scale. And now let's see what happens here. So I'm going to have something that looks like this. Okay. It's going to come up, come down. Okay. So this is going to be from 0 to 2 pi. Okay. So if I'm taking a look at this right here, I want to go ahead and label. So I have from, let's check my window again. I have from 0 to 2 pi. So that's something that I'm going to go ahead and graph, right? So here's my 0. Let's just say I say that this here is pi over 2, right? So I went 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do that. This is where pi is. I'm going to go another 4, 2, 3, 4. This is my 3 pi over 2. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go, this is where 2 pi is. Okay. All right. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to go to my table. And I see 0, comma 2. Okay. So I know that the highest number that I'm going to have looks like it's going to be, looks like it's going to be 4.97 something, 4 point whatever. All right. So it does go, so 0, 2 is going to be one of the numbers. And it looks like the highest number that I have is like 4.96, 4.97. All right, good to know. So let's go ahead and change my, I'm going to hit second window. And for my table set here, let's change it by pi over 2. And so let's see what happens, okay? So I had 0, 2, so I can go ahead and graph that. 0, 2 is a point, okay? And then if I take a look at my graph over here, let me go back to my second window. Let's start at 0. Go back. All right, so I have 0, 2, right? And then the next thing I notice is 1.57 is the same thing as pi over 2, because if I take 3.14 divided by 2, I also have 2. So pi over 2 is going to be at 2. And then it looks like everything is going to be at 2, right? Yeah, it do. So pi is going to be at 2, 3 pi over 2 is going to be at 2, 2 pi is going to be at 2, right? So what does this mean, right? It means that I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my graph. And let's see. Look, 0, 2, it went up, came down. Okay. So my table is going up by pi over 2. Okay. So each, what does that mean? That means that each of my tick marks are pi over 2, right? So let's see what is my highest point. So I'm going to go ahead and hit second trace. Option number 4 is maximum. Okay. And so all the maximum are at the same point. So let me just go ahead left bound. Let's go right bound. So I'm going to go a little bit past that little mountain top, anywhere to the right, hit enter, and I'm going to go to where I think it is, and I'm going to hit enter. That's right there. So my highest point is 5. Okay, so highest point at 5, and that's going to be at 3.92. So pi is at 3.14. I'm going to go about 3.92. This is 345. And I'm going to put my 5 up here, right? And then I'm going to find the other one. So this point over to the left. So I'm going to do second trace again. Option number 4 is maximum. So let's go to the other peak. Let's find out where that other maximum is. I do have a little minimum there, so I could do that. But since I'm on max on my curve, let's go to the left. And sorry, this is taking so long. I want to make sure that you understand how to do this. So I'm going to go a little bit to the left of it, hit enter, go a little bit to the right of it. And again, I already know that my height is going to be 5. My max is going to be 5. I'm trying to find out what is my x. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to give me 0.78. Okay, so 0.78. All right, so this is 1.57. So about 0.78 is going to be somewhere over here. Okay, so it's going to go up. It's going to come down like this. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to get the full picture here. So now I want to graph my minimum. So my min is going to be over here. So let's hit second trace again. I'm going to do my min, which is option number 3. And so now I'm going to do my left bound, right bound for my minimum. So this is going to be past pi over 2. Do you see that? So I'm going to hit enter. Let's keep going to the right. Enter. I'm going to go to where I think it is. Okay. So 2.356 is going to be at -1, right? 2.356 is going to be at -1. And again, where this is, right, is past pi over 2, about halfway. That's going to be -1, right? So what's happening here is it's going to come down. Let me erase that so this is a little bit better, right? It's going to, the graph is going to come down, going to touch this, and then it's going to, right? At pi, it's going up past 2, it's going up to 5. You see what's happening here, right? So we're doing like a little sketch here. So at 3 pi over 2, that's our 1, 2, third tick mark. And I see that it's going down at that point. So it's going to go down through this. It's going to come down, find another min. Oh. So here our min is going to be again -1. So it's going to come down, hit that. It's going to go up, right? And I can stop because it says go from 0 to 2 pi. If that part is a little confusing, I think the more we practice it, the better it's going to be. So we're going to decide the range of numbers is going to be, and we did that by doing our max. So we know that this is going to be 5, and our min is going to be -1. Okay, so our midline is 2, right? Which here's our midline. See that? Our height is 3 from the midline up. There's 1, 2, 3 boxes. So that's where our 3 comes into play. There's no phase shift. There's no right, left or right. And our period is 2 pi over 2, which is pi, right? How long it takes to make a full cycle is pi. All right. Let's do a check for understanding. See if you can find the A, B, and C. Good job.